Let me just mention this. A couple on the GTMO message that the president had. We have, I'll give you a little chronology on that. On the 22nd of January in 2009, Obama signed an executive order to close GTMO within a year. On the 3rd of February, the same year, 2009, I introduced a bill to permanently prevent GTMO detainees from being relocated anywhere in the United States. At that time, they were even talking about relocating them in parts of my state of Oklahoma in the Fort Sill area. In May of 2009, I authored a bipartisan legislation with Senator Danny Inhofe to block funding to close GTMO and to move the detainees anywhere on U.S. soil. So that was done. That passed 90-6. Every year since, Congress has blocked the attempts by this president and his administration to close GTMO or move terrorist detainees to the United States. Every year, Congress has passed laws that continue to limit transfer of these detainees, including the conference fiscal year 16 NDAA bill. That's what we're talking about right now. It prohibits the transferring of GTMO detainees to the United States through December 31st of 2016. Now, that tightens the restrictions also on the detainees being transferred to other countries. The fiscal year NDAA also included language preventing closure of GTMO through December 31st of 16. However, this has not prevented President Obama from trying to empty GTMO, releasing these terrorist detainees to any country he can pay to take them back, and now threatened an executive order to bring them to the United States, to the states of Colorado, South Carolina, and Kansas, against the will of the senators from those states, the House members from those states, and the American people. Now, this is not the first time the president has gone against the will of the American people and violated our laws. The president violated the law last June when he transferred the Taliban 5 from GTMO in exchange for Sergeant Bergdahl, if you remember that issue. And he failed to notify Congress. Our laws that we passed said that they had to notify Congress 30 days in advance of any transfer of terrorists to any facility. Now, his failure to adhere to the law that he signed it placed our nation's security at great risk. Let me just mention to you, and I carry this with me to let people realize who he turned loose, the Taliban 5, and this is a statement that was made by the Taliban commander. His name was Mullah Khan. He said, and this is a quote, his return, he was talking about Muhammad Fasil. Now, keep in mind, he was arguably the most dangerous terrorist that was being held in GTMO. He said his return is like pouring 10,000 Taliban fighters into the battle on the side of jihad. Now the Taliban have the right lion to lead them in the final movement before victory in Afghanistan. I mean, this is the kind of people he's turning loose. And according to the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence, 29% of the detainees transferred out of GTMO have either been confirmed or suspected of returning to the fight and killing Americans. That's how serious this thing is. GTMO is outside the sovereign territory of the United States, which means detainees held there do not have constitutional rights. But you put them back in the United States, and very likely they would have those rights. In fact, I have a quote from former U.S. Attorney General Michael McCasey. He said, the question of what constitutional rights may apply to aliens in government custody is unsettled. But it's clear from existing jurisprudence that physical presence in the United States would be a significant, if not decisive, factor. I'm also concerned about the security of the people here that would have to guard these terrorists when they leave. Back when Thompson, Illinois prison was discussed, that was in 2009, Representative Mark Kirk, at that time he was in the House, before he was in the Senate, called to move an unnecessary risk, and other Illinois members were concerned that the transfer of prisoners, and some for trial and some for indefinite detention, could make the state a target for terrorists. Mark Kirk was then and is correct now that prisoners holding the detainees will become magnets, and there's very possibility that these detainees will recruit more terrorists. You got to keep in mind that a terrorist is not a criminal. A terrorist is someone who trains other people to be terrorists, and that's what we'd be seeing happening in our courts. FBI Director Robert Mueller said there is very little real possibility that Gitmo detainees will recruit more terrorists from among the federal inmate population and continue al-Qaeda operations from outside the country. It's a state of an art. And by the way, those of us who have been, and I've been several times, as has the occupier of the chair, they look at the humane treatment of all detainees. When I was down there, the biggest problem they had, the detainees, was overweight. They're all obese because they're eating so well. It's fully in compliant with the Geneva Convention and provides treatment and oversight that exceed any maximum security prison in the world. As attested by the human rights organizations such as the Red Cross, the Attorney General Holder, and independent commission led by Admiral Walsh. It's a secure location away from the population centers, and it has a $12 million expeditionary legal complex. That's a courtroom, and you can't use our courtrooms because of the confidentiality of information that is extracted from these individuals and used in the courtroom. So they use the expeditionary legal counsels. And the last thing I would say is that it's clearly that and this comes from the former CIA director, Leon Panetta. He was talking about the fact that our president was talking about the way they're able to get the bad guy, and what they refuse to understand is the information that they extracted at Gitmo was used in order to actually the Osama bin Laden capture. So anyway, we don't want that to happen. We can't afford to let that happen, and we're going to do everything we can to keep the president from having. This has become an obsession with him, and we're not going to let that happen.